Oh, hello.
Oh, hello.
And welcome to the Comic Queens podcast. I'm Alex.
And I'm Annie. And today I am scared of the list that I have put together.
Yeah, my list is much shorter than your own completed series list.
Seeing the 17 versus 53 series, part of me is like patting myself on the back, and the other half is like, what were you doing this entire year other than reading? I don't even know how I fit any of this in.
Yeah.
So we are going to be going through the series that I have completed on my own this year. These will all get ranked on an S to F tier. So without further ado, I will start out on my very lengthy list. First on my list is 1 to 10. This is a boy love series. I would say a boy love comedy on Leeson.
Mm-hmm.
It is pretty adorable. It's not my absolute favorite story, but it definitely is one that I would probably go back and read certain points from because it was funny enough.
Yeah.
So I'm going to rank this one a B.
All right.
Yeah, glad to have read it. The second one is Achilles and the Boy Nextdoor. We read this one for one of our Hadestown highlights.
One of the times we went to Hadestown.
One of the 3 times this year. Because we're insane. Achilles and the Boy Nextdoor is a story that's completed on Tapas. One, I read this because it's by an artist I love, Hake, but this one was definitely A tier. I loved reading this story. It was so funny. The only reason it's not S tier is because I wanted more of the story.
Yeah, that's fair.
So the next one I read is Angelic Partners. This one is on Leeson, and it is completed with not that many episodes. It's like 7 or 8 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
It's, let's just call it what it is. It's porn without plot. And you know what? That's great. It was very average to me, so I'm giving it an average C score.
Okay.
But it was good.
Yeah.
The next one is called Back to School. This series is on Leeson, and it's completed. There's 2 parts to it, so I'm going to rate the All Ages Part 1 and the All Ages Part 2 separate. So starting with Back to School, the All Ages Part 1, I loved this series.
Mm-hmm.
I'm rating this one an S, specifically because I felt like this story handled a toxic male lead in the most appropriate ways possible.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt so cathartic to me, and I loved it. And going forward to Back to School All Grown Up, I'm rating this one a B. It was honestly a side story that I didn't feel like I needed after Back to School resolved itself. So it was like a nice addition, but I could have entirely left it. And whenever I think of the series, all I remember is the All Ages story.
Yeah.
So Back to School, S tier. Back to School All Grown Up, B tier. The next story I read is Banana Scandal. And this one is completed on Tapas. I loved this series, but it was really hard for me to get into. Like the first season, I was like casually reading it because it didn't hold my interest very much until a certain point. So it was one that I almost dropped, but I did love the series. Like truly had maybe one of the best redemption arcs I've ever read in a series. So for that, I'm going to have to give it A tier. I think that it's great and everyone should read it. It wasn't like my top story ever.
Yeah.
But it is definitely worth reading. It's just really long. It's like 160 episodes. So you got to make sure you set aside some time for that one.
Fair enough.
Next on my list is BDSM 101. Surprising probably nobody.
This is one I flagged for you.
This is one that I needed to read after it was flagged for me, so thank you for that. BDSM 101 is S tier. 100%. This story is on Leeson. There are rumors that it'll get kind of a reboot or like an extra side stories episode release. But so far it's listed as completed. This story has probably the healthiest representation of BDSM that I have read in any of our stories. The characters are wholesome and adorable, and I love their relationship, and I love them, and it's perfect. So if you haven't read BDSM 101, you should. The next story I'm talking about is Blazing. This is a shorter series. I believe it has like 15 episodes on Leeson. This is a Guideverse one, and it's a Guideverse story that doesn't go along with necessarily how the rest of them do. So I liked that it seemed to be a unique take. You have, you know, your Esper, who's actually like completely out of control. And the person who ends up helping him is one of the guides who heads like this elite academy for guides. And he takes him over as a client himself because he loves him, not because he's supposed to be his guide.
Yeah.
It was a really touching story, and I genuinely loved them, so I gave this one an A. Moving forward to another one that you put on my radar, I got to complete Broken Melody this year. This series is S tier. It is so absolutely beautiful and heartbreaking, and then beautiful again.
Yes.
It just really knows how to tear at your heartstrings. This series is completed on Leeson, so if you want to read it there, I highly, highly recommend it. But no notes.
I'm so glad.
Good.
I'm so glad you read it.
Isn't it just so cathartic
to
know you have fantastic taste? The next one that I read is called Brood Parasitism. This is one that's on Manta. It's completed with like 6 episodes. It was a very quick read. I couldn't even tell you what it's about. Like, none of it stuck with me. I do remember the art being gorgeous, but the storyline was not great. I know that I think the male character was extremely manipulative, and there was like some weird, they're potentially related kind of stuff in it. It was not for me. And so I'm torn between giving it a D or an F. But I think since the art was beautiful, I'm going to give it a D.
Okay.
The next one that I read is Complex Tastes. This one is completed on Leeson. And I initially read this because the art was gorgeous. So beautiful, light and airy.
Yeah.
But it's about somebody having a sister complex. And like, we're not talking like your average Joe sister complex. Like just being proud of your sibling. It's like obsessive amounts, and it's really genuinely uncomfortable. And so I'd have to give this one a D tier as well, which makes me sad. Not my cup of tea. Could absolutely be somebody's favorite if you're into that kind of a trope. But it just wasn't for me. So
fair enough.
Yeah. The next one I read is Date Me Too. This is a series that's by the same creator as Define the Relationship. So I did read it mostly because the art, of course, is gorgeous.
Yeah.
But it's just a cute little college life short story. I did like it a lot, but it was fairly average. So I rated this one a C, just because I probably won't go back to reread it, but it was a cute story to, read and enjoy. The next one I read, which is actually one of the first series I completed at the beginning of this year, was Dawn of the Dragon. I loved this series so, so much. And I'm going to give it an A tier. And it would have been an S tier if it weren't for the fact that in their past lives, the main character kind of helped to raise the dragon. Which is always kind of that weird, I don't know, kind of makes me feel gross. But did I forgive it? Yes. Should I have? That's always up for debate. But I loved this series, so it's gotten an A from me. I think everyone should read it. I think it's beautiful. The next one I finished is Define the Relationship. I loved this series. It's an alpha omegaverse. And I don't want to give too many spoilers about why I think what I do, mostly because I really think that you should finish this one next year.
Yeah.
But I am going to give it an A tier.
Okay.
There are some miscommunications that I didn't like very much. But other than that, it was pretty amazing. So definitely high up there in the art. Absolutely gorgeous. The next one I read is called Disguised Desires. This was a pretty short romance series. It was a historical romance on Leeson, and I loved them. The male lead in this story is absolutely beautiful. It's just such a gorgeous story about a girl who loses her nobility title and is hiding and pretending to be a man, and the person that she was betrothed to seeking her out even after she's lost her title. It was an absolutely gorgeous story. I gave this one an A. It wasn't perfect in my eyes, but I loved reading this one. And genuinely, the main character is so hot. I was like, oh no, he's actually perfect. The next one I read is Driver's High. This is a boy love race car driver series. Right off the bat, I was very interested, and it didn't disappoint. I will say, though, I do find their lack of communication kind of annoying in this one at certain times. So, like, a lot of times, the main character, Leo, will do things on purpose to piss off his partner. And the series starts with their breakup and them getting back together. So it's definitely messy. There's a lot happening there.
Yeah.
I gave this one a B because I did genuinely like them a lot once they figure their shit out. And they figured their stuff out enough that I was like, okay, I don't hate them for it.
Yeah.
But it was kind of a little pettier than most of the other stories that I read. All right. The next one we're coming up to is Finding Camellia.
I'm so curious.
This manhwa is over. So that is a plus. And you know the complicated feelings I have with the manhwa of this. If we were talking about the novel, it would be S+. I don't even know how I could rate it higher. But the webcomic just really disappointed me in many different areas. Like, they had certain parts of the plot changed, and then they tried to get themselves back on track by, like, repeating some of the bad things that happened. Mm-hmm. And it just didn't work. Like, they could have rewritten it as if something happened earlier, and it would have changed the trajectory of the entire story. And then instead of doing it, they acted like this terrible act happened twice, which also would change the entire trajectory of the story. Yeah. They tried to come back. The side stories were cute. The art has been beautiful throughout, but it wasn't an accurate representation of the novel, and I didn't like the liberties they took with it. So I'm gonna have to say it's a C tier for me.
All right.
I enjoyed reading it. I did not enjoy reading certain parts, but am I glad that I finished it? Yes.
Yeah. This is one I'm not sure if I'm gonna finish. I was reading along, but I don't know.
It's hard when you love the novel.
Yeah.
And it doesn't follow with how it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
In any case, we'll move on. Fly Me to the Moon was kind of one of those ones that's very average for me. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't go back and reread it probably, but it was a cute story to happen. I hated the brother. Teho, they did a great job at making you hate him. You're supposed to hate him, and they succeeded.
Yeah.
But like the way, I don't know, I just had a hard time understanding how they loved each other so much. And it was literally just that, like, the brother helped her get through whatever the transitioning process was. Mm-hmm. And that was all they needed, apparently. And then, suddenly they're inseparable and he's breaking off an engagement. They were cute. It just wasn't my favorite story.
Yeah, fair enough.
So, this one for me was a D tier.
Ooh, that's low.
I wouldn't reread it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like, I read it. It was okay. At best.
Yeah.
But like after reading it, I was like, I don't feel like anything of value happened here, really. The next series I read was Footsteps in the Snow. This series is available on Webtoon. It's completed with 15 episodes, so it's a super quick read. And it is an apocalyptic story. I loved this series, but the series starts out tragically and does not end tragically or as tragically as I would have hoped. And I was really hoping that since they kept with everything being tragic the entirety of the series, that they would have given this a tragic ending. I just feel like we don't see that often.
Yeah.
And we weren't given much hope throughout the whole series. But I still loved it. The art for this one is gorgeous, and the storytelling is just incredible. I was hooked from the first episode, so I'm giving it an A. The next one I have to talk about is Gentle Mode Off. This is available on Manta for 5 episodes, and this one is extremely average. It's just a short story about people hooking up and being interested in one another and how do they start to have an intimate relationship from there. Mm-hmm. It was very C tier for me.
Is this a newer one?
It is. It released, this artist ended up releasing several different series. The art style is all super similar. So they have Gentle Mode Off. You might have also seen 7 Sundays, which released as well.
Yeah. I did see
and
that.
They kind of all appeared on a bunch of different platforms at the same time. Mm-hmm. But I did read this one. It was like 5 episodes. And it was cute. It was just, you know, a nice short story. I didn't feel attached to any of the characters. So it's a C tier for me.
Okay.
The next one I read is Geon and Suo's Unholy Love Affair. This is a BL comedy on TappyToon, and I'm literally laughing just saying the title of it. This entire series had me cackling from the start to finish. So it definitely did what it sought out to do, which was make me laugh the entire time. I'm going to give it an A. It wasn't perfect, but I genuinely loved this series. The next one I read is Hook, Line, and Sinker. This is a love triangle story. Also, at certain points, a throuple story, but it kind of unthruples. Couldn't tell you. You just have to read it for yourself. This one was very average for me. There is another series that's kind of a spin-off of this one that brings in some of the other characters, but the character that it brings in is extremely toxic.
So you should love it.
Well, it's toxic in like a not respecting consent or boundaries way. Not my favorite.
Not like a framing your wife for murder kind of way.
Exactly. This one was a C tier for me. It was kind of take it or leave it. There were some really cute moments. There were moments that had me laughing out loud, but at the end of the day, it was nothing I was going to write home about.
Yeah.
Not that I would write my home about basically anything I read. But just wanted to put that out there. The next one I read is I Spy a Married Life. This series is completed on Webtoon. It is available now for coin unlock or ad passes, but I adored this series. I mean, what's not to love about an undercover agent who's trying to do a really good job to impress her boss because she's in love with her boss, who thinks she's an ineffective employee because she spends all her time being obsessed with him. And as soon as she's not focused on him anymore, he gets jealous.
Yeah.
It is so good. I love them. I love their target. He's hilarious. And this is an S tier for me. I literally unlocked it after reading it so I can reread this series. So it's perfect.
That's how you know.
That's how you know. The next one I read is Just Peachy. This is a completed series on Leeson. It is a romance series about basically a goddess trying to ascend, and the holy peach that she's supposed to have at her ceremony, she loses it and sends it to the human realm and has to find it. Mm-hmm. It was cute. It was a cute story. It wasn't my favorite, but it was cute. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give it a C.
All right.
Now, the next one is going to be a bit controversial.
Yeah.
The next series I read is Stalking. This series is a boy love horror series on Leeson, and I have so many mixed feelings about this series. And I go back and forth as to whether or not this series is absolutely genius or if it is just terrible for terrible's sake. If the author's entire goal was for me to be like, wow, that's absolutely ridiculous, that wouldn't happen, but also maybe it would happen, and also I'm horrified by everything that's happening here, and I'm uncomfortable reading it to the point that I took like a year hiatus from reading it, then they did a great job. However, horror already isn't really my bag. It's a very horrific series. I'm gonna give it a D. And I know that that is going to make some people upset, but it just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Now, I say this knowing that if you do read this series, you are going to give it at least an A. And you know what? I wholeheartedly respect that for you.
Yeah.
It just wasn't for me. Do I think that the art and everything is well done? Yes, which is why I'm not giving it an F tier for me. But this series truly was almost a do not finish for me. Mm-hmm. And I only finished it because I got it for a reading roulette.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at.
The reading roulette really wanted you to finish it too.
It really did. And you know what? I did it, damn it. So now we can move on. The next one I read is Lies of the Damned. It is a short story. It seems like it's supposed to be porn without plot, but then it does kind of throw some curveballs your way where you're trying to figure out this village's secret, where this guy isn't supposed to leave his house at night because there's a demon that's infiltrated the city, but you find out that the people who live there are more horrific than the demon themselves. Mm-hmm. It is a lot of just explicit content, but there was some plot that actually got trickled through. So I liked it more than I thought I would. And I'm going to have to give it a B tier. It just surprised me. I expected it to be kind of nothing. And it, gave me a bit more content. The next series I read is Lost in the Cloud. This series has some of the most beautiful art I've ever seen in a webcomic, manga, anything. Mm-hmm. This is a drama, and let me tell you, I just didn't feel like there was a lot of character growth in this one. This is another one that I think is going to be a bit of a controversial pull, but Lost in the Cloud was a C tier for me. just because they did such a good job at building up how terrible this character was in the beginning. And I never really felt like he got better. He's just kind of awful towards other people. And you know what? Like, that's his prerogative. They give him a sad backstory. I understood it. I just didn't feel like I could fully forgive him. And I wanted to be able to.
That's fair.
So it was very average. I did like it. The art, gorgeous to look at. Just not a story that I was super jazzed about. The next one I read is Lost in Motion. This one is extremely average, unfortunately. It's about a girl whose husband is cheating on her, and she ends up teaching this younger man piano lessons, and she falls in love with the guy who she teaches the piano lessons to. There's so much abuse back and forth. She gets no space from the abusive husband at all. And then all this ridiculous stuff happens kind of out of nowhere, like him poisoning her dad. And it all just kind of feels like a lot. I am going to give this one a D tier only because it was not my cup of tea. Again, totally personal preference, but it just didn't impress me. The next one is Love at First Fright. This is a series that was completed at basically 30 episodes on Leezen. It's about a guy who lives in a haunted apartment building. He meets a guy at a restaurant who can see ghosts and can expel them. And so the guy at the restaurant ends up going and helping to expel the ghosts from his house. And then he's like, if you like need my help later, let's, get together again. And then they form a relationship. It never tackles why this guy has these supernatural powers. Not even in a sense of like, I don't know, I've just always had it. Like, it's never discussed. It's as if it's just normal. They do have some really cute interactions with different ghosts. But it just felt like there was a lot unexplained. And I did expect it to go on longer than it did. So for me, that was a C tier. So the next one for me is Love Me Doctor. This series is about a guy who is experiencing ED. And he goes to a doctor who ends up, I would say he has a malpractice suit on his hands. But the doctor ends up finding his own methods for helping to relieve that.
Yeah.
And they start this relationship from there. It's kind of gross how the relationship starts. I do love their dynamic at the end, but just for the malpractice suits pending alone, I'm going to have to go with a C tier on this one. I liked them by the end.
Couldn't suspend your disbelief for that one.
Yeah, but I was like, oh my gosh, how is this guy this naive? There's no way. There was also a part where like he's doing this with his doctor and he's like, well, it's a doctor, so like I'm not cheating on my girlfriend.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot to take in.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I did read a book this year where the guy, I don't know if you'll remember me talking about this, but it was a guy and he goes to the doctor and the doctor thinks he's there to like role play being doctor and patient and that they're there to actually hook up. And the guy just goes with it. It's not the only story like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was fine. It's on Tapas. You can feel free to read it there. But it wasn't my favorite.
Yeah.
It was very average.
Fair enough.
And should I have forgiven it in the end? Again, debatable. But who's to say? The next one I read is Love Me Dramatically. This is a short series on Manta. It is unlockable with gems. It follows a couple who is really kind of struggling. They're both shy and they're not sure how to kind of push forward and become intimate with one another. But one of the people really likes K-dramas. And so they work to kind of do role play because they assume that if they are acting as other people, it will be a little bit easier for them to become intimate with one another. And they won't get as caught up in their head about everything that's going on. Mm-hmm. It was really cute how the main lead character just tries to cater to his boyfriend and make him comfortable. And just the cute little role-playing scenes together. I liked it. I gave it a B tier. It was an adorable read, and I'm glad that I unlocked it. So the next one I read is My Fantasies Are Coming to Life, ? This one is completed on Leezen, and it is a story about a girl and a guy who are boss and employee, and she ends up sending him the wrong file. The wrong file being she wrote a fan fiction about her and this guy who is her boss and the intimate relationship they have. And so they start an intimate relationship based off of all of the fan fiction and everything that she reads.
Yeah.
It was pretty cute. I liked it. I'm going to give it a B tier. It was one that I probably won't go back and reread, but I'm glad that I read. Mm-hmm. Next is Not Your Typical Reincarnation Story on Webtoon. This series was absolutely beautiful. I loved the art. And truly a lot of this series was different than a lot of isekais that I have read. But at certain points, it was a typical reincarnation story, which I thought was very interesting, especially looking at the title. Because of that, I'm giving it a B tier. I did enjoy reading this one a lot. It does tie in a lot of the like video game type of aspects too, so I think you might enjoy it.
I do like that.
You know, for a story called Not Your Typical Reincarnation Story, there were some pretty typical reincarnation story tropes in there. So the next one I read is called Obscene Hobby. This one is a super cute short story on Tappytoon. I'm giving it a C tier. It was very average, kind of just the porn without plot, but you know what? I do this to myself. I read the descriptions of these stories sometimes, and I do it anyways. And the same thing goes for Obscene Playmates, which is the next story on my list. It is also a C tier story, but I read it and I didn't hate it. So
is it just obscene that you need to stay away from?
You know, I wouldn't even say stay away from it. Maybe it's your cup of tea. I just know for me, it was very average. Like among everything that we read, it didn't stand out in the crowd at all.
Yeah. Again,
nothing to write home about. And if you did, it'd probably be inappropriate. The next one on my list is Paws and Claws. This is a completed animal hybrid story on Leeson. I adored this story.
Yeah.
I loved it. It's a gangster. It's the animal hybrid. It's a wolf and this little tiny puppy, but the little puppy rules everything around him. And the wolf is like, anything you say, I'll burn the world for you. And who doesn't love that? It's just perfect. This is S tier. I adored this story. The next one I read is Pian Pian. This is a completed series on Leeson. It is by the same artist as Triad and Tribulations. Mm-hmm. So that art style, absolutely stunning. Pian Pian is a name verse story where everybody has the initials of their lovers on them. And for basically the entire story, you realize that this guy is attracted to his boss and the initials don't line up for them. So he assumes that this isn't his soulmate and he tries to go against fate anyways. This is an S tier story for me. Mm-hmm. I adored this story. I loved the characters. It was all so well done, and just talking about it is making me want to reread it again. The next one I read is Red Candy. This is a crime story completed on Leeson about a spy who falls in love with his target. And really, that's all you need to know.
So fun.
It is perfect. It is also the first installment. The side story is Bad Apple, which I know you've already started this year.
Yes.
But Red Candy is absolutely perfect. I have no notes. It is S tier. The next one I read is Reunion. Reunion is one that we were continuing on with for a while. And then we kind of fell off of it for a while. And then I continued it back again. This story was completed on Manta. And it's a beautiful story about, you know, finding love and memory loss, really, and somebody who had played this false identity. It's a very complex story, but I did love it. I gave this one an A. It didn't make me cry, but it was close. So those are my notes there for you.
So an A+.
Exactly. The next one I'm talking about is 7 Sundays. This story was very adorable. I will say there's a bit of a precarious age gap and multiple mentions about the male character who's 6 years older feeling like he raised the other one. The romantic relationship is between the two of them.
Yeah.
So that 6-year age gap when they knew each other as kids feels pretty strong.
How old are they?
In the story, when they are actually forming a relationship, they're like 20 and 26.
Okay.
But then they get together later on at like 34 and 28.
Okay.
So it's not so bad, but they knew each other when like the one character was in first grade.
Yeah.
There's a bit of an age difference there. They didn't take much of a break from each other either. So this one was kind of hard to gauge because, one, it was a firefighter story, and I did kind of love that. And honestly, the dynamic between the two characters was very good. But again, there were just kind of some of those precarious things that were looming in the back of my head the entire time while I read it. And so I'm going to have to give it a C tier. The next one I read is Sign. This story had been on my list for a while. I started it last year. Then I restarted it this year for reading roulette. And then I finally finished it. And I think I have the same qualms with it in the end that I had in the beginning, which was it doesn't feel like an accurate representation of sign language. Mm-hmm. And for that being one of the main parts of the entire story, that feels pretty significant. I did like it. It was super cute. I didn't like some of the side characters, but I can get over that. I think this one for me was a B tier. It wasn't perfect, but it is one that I'm glad that I read. Super fluffy and adorable. But also, yeah, the sign language representation was a little precarious for me. Mm-hmm. The next one I read is Solo for Two. This is completed on Leeson, and I have no notes. It's absolutely perfect. This is S tier. I'm not even going to talk about it. I know I've talked about it before. It's perfect. The next one I'm talking about is Sparkling Baby. This is the spin-off series of Loverboy, which I actually haven't read yet. I do own 3 of the volumes in print so far, but haven't picked it up. Sparkling Baby, however, is about one of the side characters in that series and a new character who's brought in. There is a photographer in it, so I do think you'd like it. This one was honestly adorable. I loved their dynamic, and I'm giving it an A. Everything about it just stuck with me great. I hope I feel the same way about Loverboy. I guess I'll find out eventually. The next story I have to rate is Spring, the Color of Love. This series was, again, recommended by you.
Yes.
And all I can say is that this series on Manta, it's now gem only, but it wasn't when I read it. Mm-hmm. It's perfect. There are no notes. It's absolutely S tier.
Yes, I agree.
And I would reread it again right now. I probably have to unlock it. But you know what? Worth it. The next one I have is Staff Only. This is an Omegaverse. So it's an alpha, omega, alpha. So it is a throuple. And it's a short story on Leeson. This one was cute. It's not anything that I would write home about.
Maybe let's just make a blanket statement that you're not going to write home about any of these. PSA, Annie does not write home about these stories.
PSA, Annie doesn't write home about anything she reads. This one I genuinely loved just because it had throuple representation and it was genuinely pretty cute. It was porn without plot. We're just going to call it what it was. And for that, it was C tier. I enjoyed reading it. I'm not going to go back to it. Mm-hmm. But I did like to see that representation in there. So that was nice. The next one I read is Surrender to the Serpent Goddess. This one we read for one of our snake-focused series. Mm-hmm. And this was not my favorite rendition of a snake god story. It was a very long series, and it all kind of felt like porn without plot. So that's kind of strong. It was like 90 episodes. So I'm going to give this one a C tier. It just wasn't something that I would go back to. The next one I read is Accidental Heiress. This one was completed on Manta, and it is leaving the platform. So if it's something you want to read, you could unlock it now. However, it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
They had so much potential, and it felt like everything was unresolved. This was one that I was keeping up with. And then I saw that it got completed and I was like, huh? When? Where? And then read it and it just didn't resolve much of anything for me.
Fair.
And so I'm going to have to give it a D tier. It just made me sad because I liked it so much and it didn't go where it needed to.
See, this is one that I read and dropped.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't for me.
There was something about it. So the next one is The Knight's Unfulfilled Dreams. This is completed on Manta. It's a short series with about 7 episodes. And I genuinely loved this one. It's about an emperor who loves one of his knights. And there is his brother who ends up getting jailed because the brother made a move on the emperor's betrothed. And so the emperor basically says, I'm going to keep your brother in jail if you don't come back and serve as my knight. And they had already had an intimate relationship with one another. And you get to find out all of the intricacies of why the emperor is doing what he does and realizing that there's like this huge scheme in place that he's doing so that he and the knight can be happy together. Mm-hmm. It was genuinely really cute, and I loved it. I'm going to give it an A tier. The next series I have to talk about is The Rib of Adam. And honestly, I don't even know that I need to talk about this one much. It's completed on Leeson with about 5 episodes. The description of it alone is unhinged, and it's probably nothing I should have read. I'm not even going to talk to you about it on this podcast. You want to look it up? It's called The Rib of Adam, and it's on Leeson. And you know what? I'm going to give it a B tier.
Now I'm curious.
The art, first of all, gorgeous. I loved the cover art, which was the entire reason I wanted to read it. Mm-hmm. But again, if you read the description, you will know why I'm not talking about it openly here. But it's B tier, so if you want to look at it, you definitely probably should. The next one I have to talk about is The Sacred Serpent Seduction. I promise we're getting towards the end of this list. The Sacred Serpent Seduction is a snake god story. And let me tell you, I loved them. It is absolutely wholesome. You get to see 2 snake A babies, and they are absolutely precious. And I loved everyone in this series. It was so good. This one is A tier. The next series I have to talk about is The Unholy Agreement. The Unholy Agreement is a short PWP story with a priest and an unhinged girl who does not believe in a religion, trying to convince the priest that religion is not real by putting him through a bunch of different BDSM. And she ends up being successful. This series was unhinged. It was definitely a C tier for me. I'm not going back to it, but I read it. That's a thing that I did.
Yeah.
And we are getting to the last 2. So the next one I have to talk about is Undercover Darling. This is a completed series on Manta Comics. And this is such a good story. You have a cop male lead. You have this potential, drug dealer that he's looking after. The drug dealer is a former student that he went to school with that he dated for a while. And he's like, how far he's fallen. And so he feels the need to try to rehab this guy, only to find out that the drug dealer is actually part of the FBI and he's doing a sting operation. So then the cop gets involved in the FBI operations, and it kind of becomes just a huge chaotic mess. But I genuinely loved them, and I'm giving this an A tier. And last but not least is What You Wish For on Leeson. This is a romance PWP story, and all I have to tell you is that there's tentacles. It was genuinely decent, and I'm going to give it a C tier. I read it. It's a thing that I did, and it's not the worst thing that I've read. So there you have it. That is a lot of stories. I tried to be as succinct as possible, but there was a lot to get through.
I think you did a good job.
There were some high highs, some pretty low lows, but no F tiers.
So what was your favorite? And you have to pick one. I know it was much easier for me, but I did it.
I know. See, listen, I had a lot that I read this year. And let me tell you, it's not an easy decision, but I would have to say out of this list, it's going to be tied between Pion Pion and Red Candy.
Okay.
Were my favorite.
I guess I'll allow a tie.
Okay. Well, good, because that's what you're getting. But they were just so good. Like, those are the 2 that I'm like, right now I could go back and reread it.
Yeah.
Broken Melody's high up there too. Honestly, I've had a lot of winners, so I'm pretty content with that. It's been a good year. And
go us.
Maybe steer clear of some of the other ones or don't. I mean, you heard me rank Killing Stalking as a D tier, so
so what do you know?
So what do I know? Why am I even here? Who's to say? But thank you all so much for hearing me ramble on with my rankings. And we are looking forward to talking to you all about our joint completed series tomorrow.
Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye.